Hi and welcome to my channel. My name is Chrissy Hodges. Appreciate you being here. If you are here, you are probably experiencing OCD or wondering if you're experiencing OCD. And I just want to tell you that I am someone that does advocacy for OCD, lived experience, and I am also a certified peer support specialist working around the world to provide support for people working toward recovery, as well as referrals for individuals looking for treatment and therapy. I'm also the author of Pure OCD, The Invisible Side of Obsessive Compulsive Disorder. Pure OCD is a community name for individuals who live with intrusive thoughts and mental rituals. It's not a diagnosis, it just is a community name. And this is what I represent in my advocacy, and I'm so glad you are here because this illness can be very, very isolating. NoCD and OCD is an app. They also, inside of the app, have all kinds of resources. You can meet people that live with OCD, and they also do telehealth. So check them out at treatmyocd.com because they work with people in very many places all over the world. So tonight, I just wanted to talk a little bit about a specific emotion that isn't talked about often with OCD. And emotions in general aren't talked about often with OCD because they tend to be off limits. If you listen to the OCD stories, please feel free to go to the latest episode, which is where I talk with Stu about OCD and shame, and I talk a lot about some hard truths that the community hasn't really wanted to look at, but because I do peer support, I'm able to hear what a lot of people are struggling with, and I had the great honor and opportunity to be able to talk with Stu about some of these things. So it's the OCDstories.com, and it was the latest episode, which is December 24th, Christmas Eve, and I hope you enjoy it, and I would love to hear any feedback that you might have for that. With that said, I was talking about shame, which is a huge emotion when it comes to OCD. And what I talked about is in research I did in my capstone project was when shame becomes a barrier to treatment. But another emotion, another feeling that we have when it comes to OCD is doom. Now, you rarely ever hear anybody talking about this, but I wanted to specifically address this because it goes right along with what we like to call the OCD haze. What do I mean? If you haven't watched my video about the OCD haze, I'll just really briefly say the OCD haze is what happens when we are severely triggered in our OCD. And what happens is we are almost separated from life. We're so involved in what's going on with OCD that it feels like a lot of people describe it as blurred glass to the world, or like you are looking through, or you're separated, but maybe you're even just looking through some sort of glass that you can't see the world in, even though you know you're participating. It can be really, really challenging. And this haze feels a lot like dissociation and depersonalization, derealization. And people can stay in this for a really long time. You could stay in it for a couple hours, or you can stay in it for days or weeks or even months. And it is tormenting. I firsthand can tell you that at my worst, I was in the OCD haze for months. And this was back when there was no internet and there was no way of finding out what was going on with me. And it was really, really challenging and very isolating and alone. I mean, you really do feel like you're wandering on the earth, but you can't connect to anything because you're so involved in the content and the intrusive thoughts that are things that you know aren't real. I know your brain is saying, but what if mine is real? That you know aren't real, but you can't stop engaging. And it really is this engagement of your central nervous system that makes you feel separated from the real world. When we get into this space, it can feel so extremely isolating and alone and alienating. And I just wanted to validate that for you. It is a very scary place. Now, a lot of times what people refer to when they're in this state of mind, or when when they first experience a trigger that kind of activates that OCD cycle, is doom. Now, there are a lot of emotions that are around experiencing OCD, and sometimes those emotions, if we even separated anxiety of that, sometimes those emotions can actually drive a cycle of OCD. For me, recently in the last few years, dealing with kind of real event OCD, sadness was what was pulling me in more so than anxiety. And because I didn't recognize that, I stayed stuck in the theme for so long because I was so used to it being anxiety. And so when it was sadness, I was unable to recognize that this was actually OCD because I was used to what anxiety felt like. You can have sadness, you can have anger, you can have shame, you can have guilt. Those especially, embarrassment, those especially go along with the taboo, unacceptable, repugnant, intrusive thoughts. But doom is a big one. So doom is something that really hits home when, and again, you can have doom all the time. So I'm just talking about what I've experienced and what I hear a lot from people. Doom often happens when you are first triggered with something with OCD, and it is that feeling. It's that if you think, physically and viscerally right now, it is in your gut that, oh my God, if only I hadn't have watched that video, if only I hadn't read that article, if only I hadn't had that thought, if only I hadn't gone out tonight or whatever, then I would never have felt this way. And the doom piece is my life will never be the same. Things are changed forever. I took advantage of before this thought or before having, this feeling, life, I took advantage of living that life, I took for granted. And now I am doomed to feel this way forever until I solve it. And innately we know there is no solution to it because it's not a real threat, which is the whole cycle of OCD. So when you're trying to solve a non-threat, there is no solution. And therefore the doom is perpetuated of, oh no, what if I am stuck in this forever? Which is usually how doom manifests. I'll never be the same. My relationships will never be the same. I will never experience happiness the same. Things will never be better for me. There's plenty of examples of this that I could use, but one that in particular, if y'all have watched my videos from last summer, I had some raccoons in the house. But doom has never hit as hard as so I had dogs in the house, and I had a raccoon that I ended up taking to a rehabber, and she was able to save the raccoon and integrate it back into the forest, so that was awesome. But until I was able to contact the rehabber, I had to have the raccoon cage downstairs. Well, the raccoon was not sick at all. Well, there were two of them, and one of them was just struggling because it had been in someone's attic for a while. So it was just struggling to recuperate. They were babies. Well, I convinced myself that they both had distemper or rabies. Right? I had no signs, no nothing. Dr. Google told me that must be it. And so I convinced myself that these raccoons had distemper, and there was a moment that I thought, I know dogs can get distemper. Let me just Google if dogs can get distemper even though they've been vaccinated. Oh my God. Like, why the fuck did I do that? So I did that. And it was a disaster because, of course, there's probably one article in 1,000 that said, if your dogs have been vaccinated, there's still a 1% chance they could get it, even though I'd never even had the dogs have contact with the raccoons. And there was this moment, and I know that you're going to understand. There was this moment where I read those words, and I felt this deep fear and doom in my stomach. It's like the whole world came to a screeching halt, and I sat there and said, oh no, this changes my whole life is changed now. There's no way to go back. There's no way to unread what I had just read, and I knew what was coming. And I felt so sad and helpless and responsible, because that's when my responsibility OCD kicked in. And I just thought to myself, 2 minutes ago, life was completely different, and you had to Google it, and now your life is over forever. Now, I was able in the next couple days to recognize that this was OCD and do some specific ERP work to be able to work my way out of this. But it was a waiting game, right? I ended up I called my vet. He thought I was nuts. I called him, asked him about the, whether or not their vaccine would hold up, and he was like, "What?" But he knows that I have OCD, so bless him. He's so sweet. But even that didn't help the doom. It still like perpetuated the cycle in my head. But that is just one example of how it happens. That doom is so pervasive, and it just brings everything to the screeching halt. And whatever is behind that, whatever core fears are there, or whatever, intrusive thoughts that are driving this, the reels in your head that are driving this, they just perpetuate that doom feeling. And it is, I just want you to know that I completely get it. And when you get there, all you want is to escape and think, if only life could be not with this doom feeling, but the fear is it will never go away. So that's often very much linked to the OCD haze, to the feeling that you're disconnected, the feeling that life can never be okay now, and you've done something that ruined it. So with that, I'm going to end with this. That's what we tend to always go to. We have done something to ruin it. And for me, in that specific example, I did say to myself, you've ruined it. You brought baby raccoons in the house. Even though I successfully was able to, get them to people that could help, right? It didn't matter, because my core fears are that I'm going to do something horrible. It's going to ruin someone's life, or it's going to ruin my life, and I have to live with the consequences. That's a core fear of mine. And so, when I experienced that, I could feel the reel in my head. I could feel it going, it'll never be the same, and this is all your fault. And over the course of a few days and even a few weeks, I had to choose self-compassion. I had to choose, like, I did the best that I could. I made the best decisions that I could with no, malintent. Of course, OCD would have a hand in that. Was there malintent? What if? Anyway, and I just worked through all of that, but that was part of the process too. I've learned in my OCD journey that the doom feeling is not the end of the world, even though every time it shows up, it scares the shit out of me. And I want you to know that, because I want you to know that if you do experience the doom feeling and you get there, you are not alone with that. I feel it. Clients feel it all the time. Sometimes it's just acknowledging that it shows up each time and knowing you can work your way out of it, even though it feels awful while you're in it. So does the haze. You can work your way out of it, even though it feels awful. The panic is the doom is never going to go away. The haze is never going to go away. But I want to tell you, it has gone away before. It will go away again. And we can just keep getting better at doing the best we can inside of those feelings in order to work our way out faster and more effectively, so it doesn't impact our self-esteem. So I hope this helps. I know this is a strange video because we don't always talk about doom, but I wanted to validate it for you because it is so prevalent for people with OCD. I hope that you have a wonderful New Year's, because we are just about to turn over to 2024. And I know that at the end of the year, things can seem really tough because you're reflecting, or you're worried that the next year won't be good, or it might still be bad. But I will do a video before that. And I just want you to know that I'm right here with you walking into 2024, hoping it's a better year than 2023, for sure. If you're interested in my services, go to chrissyhodges.com. If you're looking for services from OCD, go to treatmyocd.com.